I'm making over 12,000 cold calls per month, and I'm not even the one dialing. Now, this system gets me 6 to 10 booked calls every single day using commission-only cold callers I can literally duplicate at scale. Now, in this video, I'm breaking down the exact hiring, training, and management process so you can actually build the same machine in your agency. Now, let me dive in and show you exactly how it works. All right, so I'm going to break down this entire Miro board, and I should not be giving you guys this for free. But I'm going to go through hiring, onboarding, building culture, management, and scaling, literally the exact thing that I use. So starting out with hiring, the first thing we need to do is go and actually find our numbers. So you don't know how many cold calls to hire. You don't want to go and just prematurely hire cold callers. And let me tell you, this is the mistake I made in the beginning. I thought that, okay, let me just bring on as many people as possible. They're going to start making calls, and all of a sudden I'm going to start booking 10, 15 appointments a day. But that could not be further from the truth, because what I didn't realize is that managing people is another whole skill, whole challenge in of itself, right? It's just like sales, marketing. It's another skill you need to learn. So the first thing you need to do is you don't want to overhire. That's the last thing you want to do. So I recommend having a calculator like this. This is what I call reverse engineering calculator. I give it to all guys that I help out as well, guys in my inner circle. But you basically go, and it's pretty simple. You can easily make one. But you basically go and just reverse engineer all your numbers. So you're filling in the stuff in green right here. So you're filling in these things. And you're basically, what you're doing is you're putting in your offer, how much cash you collect per close on average, your goal. So let's say it's $10,000 a month. And then you go and put your closing rate, your show rate, and your average booking rate, right? So average booking rate is how many you book out of 100. So if you book 2 calls out of 100, then your booking rate is 2%. If you book 0 out of 100, maybe 1 out of 200, your booking rate is 0.5%. But make sure you have that number. That's as well. You need to be tracking all of your data. Now, I will also say I would not recommend building a cold calling team. Actually, I would not build a cold calling team until you've made, I would say, at least 1,000 dials total, and you're consistently booking at least 1 to 2% minimum should be your average booking rate. Which again, so that means if you're making 100 calls, you should know for a fact, okay, if I make 100 calls, I'm going to book 1 or 2 calls a day. Because if you go bring callers on and you're not even good at calling yourself, how is that going to work? Right? Especially cold calling, it's like you need to be having daily calls with these guys, with your team, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in the other parts of this as well. But the first thing is, like, you need to be good at it yourself, have numbers, and actually have data that you can back up. Because maybe your cold callers, it looks like they're doing good, but in reality, it's like that's not actually good. You just don't have anything to compare it to. So whenever you hire as well, even for like sales, if you're going to bring on a closer, you should know like what your close rate is. Maybe you're closing at 15%, and if your closer is closing like 10%, you're like, hey dude, I was closing at 15, and okay, the bar is a little higher. But if you don't know that, then maybe you could be fooled like, oh, they're actually doing good, when in reality they're really not. So just like the first thing is have that data. But basically, going back to this calculator, it's gonna go and spit out basically how many calls you need to make a month to hit your goal of $10,000 a month if this is your offer, and with all these numbers, and it's going to tell you your daily input that you need. So if our daily input is, that means 333 calls if we're booking at 1%, and you want to be conservative with the numbers you use. You don't want to overestimate just to make it look like it's less work. You want to basically overestimate and do so much volume, again, like Hormozy, makes it unreasonable for you not to hit your goal. So if we need to do, in this case, we need to do 333 calls per day. So what that means is, okay, if we're doing 333 a day, realistically, let's say we have each caller who makes 100 per day. Let's be conservative. Let's say they have bad days. So let's say they make like 75 per day on average, which 75 times 3, that's 150 to 225 or something. So if we bring on someone else, so 4 callers would be about 300 dials per day. Again, we want to be conservative with this, and we need to hit 330 a day. So it would be about 5 callers per day if they're making 75 dials per day to hit about 330, give or take, per day. Right? So that means this is basically how we're figuring out how many we actually need. So I would say for this case, I would go and recommend to get 5 callers. I would actually, even at this case though, because a couple are going to churn right away, is I want to get more like 7 or 8 callers at once. And again, this is conservative. If they're only making 75 dials a day, I'm going to be pushing them to make at least 100 a day. That's going to be the expectation. But I would start with 7 to 8. We're eventually going to weed, I would say, 2 to 3 of these out. And then we're going to be left with anywhere from like five or six callers left on the team. But that's the first thing, is identifying how many you actually need. What's the actual input that you need from these callers? Now, like obviously if they're doing 150, 200 dials a day, you only need 2 or 3 really good people. But with cold callers, the churn is going to be pretty high in these people if you don't do it properly, but just inherently some are going to churn. But you just need to go and find your numbers first so you know exactly what you need to do. And you apply this doesn't just apply to cold calling, it applies to every area of your business. As an example, for like your show rate, if your show rate is really, really low, what you can go and do is you can go reverse engineer, okay, if I make this tweak, how much of this improve my show rate by? And then you can go double down on the tweaks that are getting you the highest show rate. It doesn't exactly apply the same exact thing here, but the biggest thing is looking at data and making data-driven decisions, excuse me, that's a tongue twister, instead of just based off emotion. Oh, let me go hire 10 callers. That's what I did in the beginning. Let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. Now, after that, again, we reverse engineer it, and we're being very pessimistic about our goals, about the number of dials that they make. So you always want to underestimate, have some room for human error. So like, to give you an example, a perfect example, I spoke with a guy, he went and booked a call with me, and I think he had like 15 cold callers on his team. He had 15 callers, and for about 2 weeks, and they did total, this is total across 15 callers in 2 weeks, they did 20 dials total across 15 people in 2 weeks, right? Like my little brother could go and do that in an hour, in 30 minutes. And he had 15 people doing it across 2 weeks. That's what happens when you don't follow the stuff I'm going to show you properly. But obviously, if you're watching this, you know exactly what to do, or you're going to know exactly what to do. And by the way, as well, if you have questions, you want this my report, just DM me on Instagram. I'll be happy to shoot it over. But basically, you want to make sure you're reverse engineering the numbers, and because this is what can happen if you do it wrong, by the way. But once we do that, we're going to go to Facebook groups. Now you can use like School, you can use Discord, like they all work, but I personally have just found a lot of success from Facebook groups when I hired all my callers, not only just cold callers, but like virtual assistants and stuff like that in general. So you're going to go basically look up, I like appointment setters, virtual assistant hub, cold callers and closers is a good one. South Africa, work from home online jobs. Basically what we're looking for is people who have good English, like, right? Like not like being racist at all, but typically some people's accents are gonna more like subconsciously come across as, oh, is this guy trying to scam me, right? Like certain accents. So I typically want to go with like Philippines, South Africa. They're good English, but not like a first world country, because they're not going to really go for commission based usually, right? So it's going to be somewhere like the Philippines, South Africa. Those are the two. Like Egypt works well. All those like UK, if you can get. I've had really good callers from the UK. That's basically what you're looking for. So when you have like a country in mind, you literally go look up like Philippines online jobs Facebook groups, and you go join a bunch. I would recommend going and joining these like as soon as possible, like even right after watching this video, just because a lot of times it takes a little bit to get accepted into the groups, and that's the hardest part, is honestly getting accepted. So you just and it's not like you have to like upload documents. I think they just get a lot of applicants, and it just takes sometimes can take up to a couple weeks. So I would go do this now, like right after watching this. Once you're in here though, you're going to go and actually make a post, something super simple like this. Hey, looking for a cold caller, start as soon as possible, earn up to, see we're saying up to because we're doing commission based, up to $1,500 a month. DM me if interested. You can also add right here, you can say good English, must have like good English or something like that, just so they know it's going to be obviously a good speaking role. So good English, DM me if interested. Once you do that, you're going to get a ton of people, I mean a ton, DMing you. So right when you make a post in these groups, you should be getting just 20, 30, 40, 50 DMs like every 30 minutes or so. And this is basically what you're going to look for. We're going to try to qualify and book these people over DMs. Now, the biggest thing you can do, the best thing, is have them send a voice message, because we want to make sure we're hearing them. So like this guy right here, this is actually one that I hired. I went and just screenshotted our chat. Basically, he reached out, he sent a voice message right away, and I was like, hey man, you sound really good, I wanna tell you a bit more about the role. And then I'm basically giving him some context. So I'm gonna break down each one of these on how you actually qualify them over DMs. So this one, you're basically giving context. This one should just be, you're looking for their accent and tonality, right? So if they sound super, super monotone, probably not going to be a good fit. And if they have like a obviously really heavy accent that it's going to be tough to understand when you're calling these like blue collar business owners and stuff, then probably not a good fit as well. But that's what I'm looking for. This first one is like accent and tonality, right? Making sure they actually can come across clearly the way they speak. Second is I'm going to give them actually context on the business, and also let them know that it is commission based. Because what you don't want to happen is then you get on calls with these people to qualify them. You have an interview and they're looking for something that's hourly, because some people just want hourly. But basically, this message, I'm like, hey man, appreciate you reaching out. Really like what I'm hearing so far. I would love to give you more details about the role, see if you're a good fit. I'm gonna be honest though, because we do have a ton of applicants, this role is gonna start at a commission based and with the potential to move into base pay as we go on. So that's something you're open to. I'd love to chat with you. And then he says, boom, yeah, I'd love to do it. Send over my calendar. And then boom, he books it in. And we have a interview process. That's basically the way you do it. I'm not going to give you all the sauce right here, just because it would be way too long on like the exact messages and all that. But that's basically the framework for it. Now, the interview process when you're actually on a call with these people is, number one, you just want to build some rapport, right? Because the biggest thing I've noticed with cold callers is you want to make sure that they're actually like a good culture fit. It's something that's so underrated. But by culture fit is like, if you feel like if it feels kind of awkward, that's not a good sign. You should be able to go out and like genuinely just like go get coffee with the person you're hiring, right? And especially for cold callers, right, when it's commission based, I've seen people who are good culture fits are going to stay for so long. I've had cold callers stay with me 5, 6, 7, 8 months at a time on a commission based role, and they can be making a lot more money elsewhere just because it's a good culture fit and they really like it feels like a brotherhood almost. Right. So that's the biggest thing, is like, you don't want to go hire, if you're like 19 or 18 or something, you don't want to hire someone who's 50 years old, because that's just not a good culture fit. I've made that mistake before. Basically, though, the interview process, we want to get their motivation, we want to get their experience and skills, so like obviously prior experience. We want to get them to actually do a role play. And a quick tip is actually give them feedback. And if they go and implement the feedback on their next call, then you know they're actually coachable. You just want to make sure they're actually coachable, and the work ethic and discipline. Again, I'm not going to go through all the exact questions, but this should give you a pretty good idea. Now from here, this is the compensation. This is what I was wondering about a lot about in the beginning, like what's the best way to pay them. So you have really 3 types. We're not going to go super in depth. You can pay them 10% per deal on the back end. You can give them $15 per appointment and 5% per deal. And you can even do showed appointment. So you're paying them per appointment that shows up, and 5% per deal on the back end. Or you can give them like a $500 per month base and a percentage per deal on the back end, which this is going to be the best for getting the best people. But if you're going fully commission based, you can definitely go just one of these two, which is zero base, only paying them per deal. Or you can do like $15-$20 per qualified appointment that shows up, and like 5 to 10% per deal, right? There's not one size fits all. Picking which one works best for you though. I've done all of these before. Now the second is the actual onboarding. Now this is super important. Just like when you onboard clients for your agency, this is going to set the tone for the partnership, right? So you need to make sure this is going to be really important. So you're going to send out a welcome email, right? Just being professional, letting them know that, hey, they're part of the team. And then I actually made a full training course, which for guys to help out, I give them my exact snapshot, which has this entire course in there. But basically, it's just going to be stuff about, okay, module 1, like the product and solution. I have a module about the actual like script, and then also about like the actual tools we use, so the dialer, all that sort of stuff. But you want to have something like this where you can actually go and you just plug them through it, and it goes and does the onboarding for you. And then you can go and just repeat this for every single caller that you have. You just chuck them in here, and then they're good to go after watching this. Once you do that, you're going to add them to the group chat, and you just want to make it super simple. I would have a news section, a main chat, a wins, a resources, and a call recordings, because basically news is going to be for like announcements and stuff. Main chat is going to be just like a group chat. They're all going to communicate on Discord. We have wins where they're going to post their wins, because every time they book a call, we want them to be in the wins section, because then the other callers are going to be like, hey, John's crushing it, I got to step it up. And the resources, so all the scripts, all this sort of stuff, this is the resource one right here. And then call recordings, so they can either submit their call recordings to review for me to review, or our daily call recordings that we have, because we're going to have daily team calls. And then also a group huddle where people can just jump on. Like I've had callers go and jump on where they get like really close with each other, almost like brothers, and they're just like jumping on in calls with each other. They're just like chatting, doing role plays together, all that sort of stuff. Because you want to make sure it feels like a team. That's the biggest thing. But also it evokes some competition, especially in this wins channel. Now that's the actual onboarding process. After this is arguably the most important part, is building a culture. More important than any of this. Now, one thing I do want to say right now is you want to hire slow and fire fast. So this hiring process, this should be the longest you spend on anything in this whole process is the hiring. Because if you like the mistake a lot of guys make, I think the mistake the guy made who brought on 15 callers is he just hired anyone who was open to commission based and who had decent English, which is not what you want to do. So I would say, especially if you're starting, take at least 10 to 15 interviews before you actually choose. Because again, like just with cold calling, if you've never cold called yourself, you don't know what good actually looks like. Just like if you've only taken 1 or 2 interviews before, you don't know what good actually looks like. You don't know what to compare it to. But if you have 10 to 15 interviews, you kind of get an idea of what's actually, like, who's actually good, who's performing. And as well, I have like a grading sheet when I interview people, and you basically put like, hey, here's their communication, rank them 1 through 5. Here's their motivation, and you rank them, and then you give them scores. So after you take 10 or 15, you can go and bring on just the top scores. Again, removing all emotion, just strictly based off data. But I would just hire or take at least 10 to 15 interviews, especially if it's your first time. But now that's kind of side tangent. Now going over to actually building a culture. The thing is, people don't want to feel like they're working for you. They want to work with you, right? So that's a mistake a lot of people make, is you bring someone on and they just feel like they're almost like a slave, right? They're just like working for you. It's like you tell them what to do, they just go and do it, right? Which that's not how they want to feel. You need to position it as like a partnership, almost like they're a piece of the business, because they are, like, they're necessary. So you want to identify, ask yourself, okay, what are your goals with the company? Where do you see things headed in the next 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months? What type of role are they going to play, and how necessary are they to get to your goal? So if you want to go and tell them all of these things, like literally tell them, okay, what are your goals of the company? Go and tell them. You want to tell them where you want things to head in the short term and the long term. You want to tell them, and you want them to know what type of role they're going to play in getting you to your goal, and then also how and why they're going to be necessary. Right? A good analogy right here is like they're a car, or like a spoke on a wheel. Right? This is a good one. Like a spoke on a wheel. You have all these different spokes, but if one spoke's missing, then the wheel's flat. And they're this spoke right here. This is one of the most important spokes. Again, if everything's there, it's going to be a well-oiled machine. But if not, then it's just not going to be able to go forward. And you need them to get to feel like that, feel like they're a necessary part of a company. And you can do this. This should be done in the onboarding process and also on your daily calls. So now that we have this, and again, if you guys want this board, shoot me a message. But basically, the management and scaling, this is going to be, these are, I always say it's most important. They're really all important. Like, you can't mess any of these up. Is going to be the management and scaling. This is the ongoing process. How you actually go and retain callers for 5, 6, 10 months. Because if anyone can bring callers on, right? Like I said, these brand new guys are bringing 15 callers on in like a week, and then they're churning all of them, making 20 dials, which is not what you want to happen. What you want ideally is you want to have 3 or 4 killers on your team who are doing 100, 200, 300 dials a day. I've had callers where they're doing literally 250, 300 calls every single day. And just with that volume, they're booking 4 or 5, 6, 10 appointments a day in some cases, right? So what we're going to do to make this happen is we're going to have daily group calls, which we're going to block off 30 to 45 minutes every single day. And you want to make sure you have a time that works for everyone. But the expectation is that they're jumping on every single call. If they miss 1 or 2, it's fine each week. But you want to make sure the expectation, hey, you're jumping on these calls. This is like mandatory calls. So the format of these calls is you want to just check in, build some rapport, right? Again, make it feel like it's not just work, right? Make it feel like, okay, they're like, you value them, like you get to know them, you get to know some of their family members, like what they do for fun, all that sort of stuff, right? Then you want to go right into questions. So like, hey, what questions do you have? Maybe they have questions about objections they got, or whatever it may be. And then you want to go into call reviews / role plays. So once they're making calls, which I recommend using the Go High Level Dialer, it's going to review all the calls for them, or it's going to record all the calls. So what you have them go and do is upload their calls to review on a tracking sheet every single day that you give them. And then you can go every day on your daily calls, you go and review some of their actual calls. That and role plays are the best thing you can do. Just like sales is reviewing your calls and then also doing role plays. If you want to get better, that's the best way to do it. So we do the same thing here. This is where most of our time is spent, right? And I actually have another video on this channel about a full call that I did with some of my callers, and I can go link that after this video if you want to check that out, or put it in the description. But you want to record all the calls, and you want to make sure you're tracking all their data. Because what you want to go and do is you want to find out what is the constraint with what they're doing right now. So we can see if they booked, let's say they made 200 calls, booked 5 appointments, that's pretty solid. But maybe let's say the pass through rate, meaning if you're using an opener like, hey, I'm going to be honest with you, this is a cold call, do you have like 20 seconds, do you have like 15 seconds, super quick. If their pass through rate is low, maybe they got like 10 out of like 60 pickups, that's an extremely low pass-through rate, which means, okay, they're booking appointments, they book 5 appointments, but the issue is they're just not getting through the opener enough times. So then what that tells us is that we need to, that the bottleneck for this caller is on the opener specifically. So what we're going to go and do is we're going to review specific calls and do role plays based on the opener. Now, as an example, maybe they're getting a lot of pass-through. Maybe their pass-through rate's like 40, but then they're only booking like 1 appointment out of 200 calls. That means the issue is going to be the actual offer or the pitch, and then you're going to put a disproportionate amount of focus on the pitch or on the offer because that's the highest leverage thing we can do. And just like with your own agency as well, if your show rate is really, really low and your close rate's like 20%, yeah, you get the close rate up to 30%. You could try to, but if your show rate's like 30%, if we can just get your show rate from 30 to 60%, you just doubled the amount of deals you're going to close without actually increasing your close rate, just by tweaking your show rate, without even making more calls, doing anything else, just tweaking your show rate. So it's all about just finding the lowest leverage thing we can do and just doubling down and solving that. And that's exactly how you're going to know what the focus of your calls should be, right? Because if you find a lot of your callers, like 3 or 4 of your callers are struggling with the pass-through rate, it's probably something up with your script. So like for me, my callers and I, my team, we've, when I had my team, we probably made 70, 80 variations to the script. Literally every day we'd make variations to the script. You have a baseline of what the script should be, but then you're constantly tweaking it just based off this data. And every caller has their own script as well. Like it's different for every caller. It's your job to help them find what style works the best for them and optimizing this data every single day. And you make sure your callers go and do this. They fill this out at the end of every day. And they just get in the habit of doing end-of-day reports. And they can even go, you can add an accountability section, which I would recommend in here, where then they go and put how many calls they made, how many bookings they got, all that stuff in here, because then it holds them, but also other callers accountable. But again, the biggest thing with data is it allows us to find the bottlenecks and tweak scripts based on data, not based on emotion. Now, the last thing you can do to like really build a really good culture is doing challenges and incentives, like fun games, fun challenges. So like as an example, you can do something like, hey, first to book 5 appointments today gets a $20 Amazon gift card. Whoever makes the most calls gets $30. I remember one that I did was whoever books the first appointment today, I'll give you a $15 Netflix gift card, right? And stuff like this to just keep it fun, but keep everyone actually excited to show up and actually make the calls. Because the hardest part with all this is just actually motivation, having them make the calls in the first place, right? And also churn. But if you can build a culture, do everything I just showed you, you're going to have a very, very low churn. Churn is still going to happen. It's inevitable, right? Churn is a part of it. It's actually a good thing because you learn from it. But also you're going to have people who actually are excited to work with you, and you're going to have like lifelong friends. Now that's one other mistake I see, especially younger like beginners make, is that they're like trying to be friends with them. You're trying to be too nice to them, which you definitely want to like be nice and respectful, but you don't want to come across as their friend, because then when push comes to shove and they're not doing their part, it's going to be awkward. It's going to feel awkward for you if you're like buddy with them to go and tell them, hey, you need to stop doing this. You need to do this. They need to position you as the authority, but not in like a, hey, I hate this guy way. It's like, I respect this person. And then you genuinely go and tell them you have standards, and if they don't uphold to those standards, they're either gone or you're having a conversation, letting them know this is not going to happen again. Because the second you're lenient and they see, okay, I can get away with doing this, they're just going to keep doing it, right? So that's like the big thing, is making sure you're holding that authority. Now, if you want help with this, with building a cold calling team or just scaling your agency in general, feel free to go below, book a call to work with you one-on-one. Other than that, again, if you have questions, just shoot me a message on Instagram. I can send over this Miro board. But like I mentioned earlier, if you want to go see a full live call I did with my cold calling team, where it was like 40, 45, maybe an hour or so, go check the video out on the screen. That'll give you a good insight into how we actually go and take these calls to actually manage them and actually scale the team. So I'll see you there.